Well, this is what this guy thinks. Trev Alberts was a great player at Nebraska, went to the Indianapolis Colts as a linebacker, got into broadcasting after he retired because of injuries at ESPN. He eventually worked his way back to Lincoln. He's now the director of athletics trying to rebuild Nebraska Cornhusker football. He said over the weekend he thinks there is a new future coming to college football. He doesn't like what he sees. Take a number, get in line behind us. We don't either. He theorizes that college football is going to be full of regrets by the time most of these TV contracts in the next 4 or 5 years come up for renewal. He says it's not good for college athletics across the board. It's not good for college football. He thinks that the TV networks are not going to pay the mega money they have just committed to each of these major conferences. And he said indirectly, you had to read between the lines, you really think Fox and ESPN and CBS and the others want to give $50 million a year to Vanderbilt or to Rutgers or to Maryland or the have-nots
Right.
and all these major conferences? His theory is what might happen, and it's been rumored out there that there could be some type of super conference. His idea that there'd be a champions super league in college football. And we'll take the creme de la creme of every football conference, take the top 2 or 3, and they form maybe a 25-team super conference just for football. And the networks would then pour all their money in to the super conference pool. Might be Michigan, Ohio State, and somebody else in the Big Ten. You know, a whole bunch of the marquee names, obviously, in the SEC, a couple of top ones in the ACC, a couple of big ones in the Big 12, maybe the leader, whoever is left in whatever the Pac-4 becomes. But it would be a 25-team super conference. Then everybody else's sports, basketball down to the Olympic sports, would spin back to their former conference affiliation. You would play basketball in the ACC. Everybody would play college baseball in the SEC. All your Olympic sports would be what they are on the West Coast and whatever the Pac-4 conference turns out to be. The TV networks would pour big money to the Champions League, but they would then pour some money, not $50 million per year per school, but a figure to every conference school so it could also co-fund its second-level sports, its Olympic sports, etc. So, I mean, that's his proposal. And he said the TV networks would pile into the Champions League, but the TV networks would also be bidding second-tier contracts, if you will, for everybody in the ACC, for basketball and track and field, whatever those structures is going to be. And he thinks the conferences, without their football programs, have to go back to regionality. And we have to go back to the rivals that we had for 50 to 75 years. And March Madness money would still be there. You know, the prime example would be if the Champions League happened and Georgia and whomever else in the SEC, Alabama, Auburn, maybe, I don't know how you pick them, but they would get the mega contract. But Georgia would also get a second-tier TV contract with money to fund all these other programs, and there'd still be all the March Madness money that would go to the 68 teams and those conferences. So it'd just be funded differently. But he says we got to get back to what we were before. And I think he's stung that he played in the Big 8, and that became then the Big 12. I think he's stung that a whole bunch of that has gone away. So it's a novel concept. It's just in idea form out there in the galaxy and the solar system. But he's of the opinion, and I expressed his opinion a couple of weeks ago, people are going to regret what they did to college football by this money grab. Go ahead, John.
Well, this is going to be more of a, how do I say this? That the haves and have-nots are going to get further separated. Because if you're not in that super conference and you're a football program, you're going to be at a huge disadvantage because you don't have the funding and the resources to compete. So, I mean, how many Power 5 Division I football programs exist? It's like 60, 80, 100, something like that, right?
Mhm.
And so this would wean it down to like essentially 25 or 30 that would get all the money or a significant portion of it. But you mentioned something that was interesting, that the does Fox and ESPN want to spend 50 million a year with Vanderbilt and all these other schools? It does invite the question. We saw what happened with Bally Sports and the Padres, and that money went away. The revenue model is shifting. I wonder if it would ever come to a point where some of these big networks might have to renege a deal or demand to renegotiate it because the dollars and cents aren't there.
Well, all the deals are funded by, quote, the big boys.
Mhm.
They're not funded by the regional sports network and a little guy trying to play above his weight. So I don't think that's going to happen. But I do think, as Trev Alberts said, why does the network want to give wads of money to the bottom feeders of these conference? Let's just form a super conference of the top 25 in college football. Now, big arguing point, and sports talk radio and us guys on pod, we need to have something to argue about.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, I mean, the next argument, if that were ever to happen, well, who's going to pick the top 25? And what
Yeah.
if their programs dip? Are you going to have relegation and boot them out and put somebody else in? Is there anybody that can earn their way in to, quote, the Champions League?
Yeah, and then would only Power 5 conference schools get in, or would a Mountain West school be able to qualify? And then in the end, I think this is ultimately what the TV networks would prefer. It's like the NFL. There's 32 teams. This would be 25, 28 teams. It's going to be like a junior NFL league, and that would be perfect for them. And yeah, they can spread a little bit of money to the other programs, but I just see this as further dividing the haves and have-nots. But the other half of this, of making all the other sports, keeping them regional, keeping the conferences together, that part makes sense.
I haven't talked to anybody who's got linkage to UCLA or USC, including some big cigar alums. I haven't talked to anybody that really likes what the Bruins and the Trojans did in the middle of the night. So
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see where this goes. Okay, from that